Guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is a very special one. We're going to talk about the newest launch from Gourmande Girls, and this is the Haunted palette. Look at the artwork with these little flying ghosts. I love the packaging. I really love it. It's very similar, like in the packaging style, to the Nightshade palette, to the Spooked palette. Now they have a third member in the family, which is the Haunted palette. If you guys want to see comparisons, swatches, two eye looks using this palette, then please keep on watching. So let me talk about the Haunted palette. The Haunted palette releases on September the 15th, and this would retail for $54.99. You can use the code SMITHYSONY to save 10% off on anything on their website. But this is how the Haunted palette looks. It comes with the sleeve, which is the same art cover as the palette. And look at this baby inside. Obviously, I've swatched this. I have used this on my eyes, so it's not like fresh as new. But I'll show you like with the imprints on the shadows, because that was absolutely amazing. I love how Doodles by the Bunny and Gourmande Girls makes palettes and they imprint like small characters on the shades, which just takes my heart. It's really spooky and lovely. Lovely touch to these palettes. It had like RIP. It had that witch hat, it had DB for Doodles by the Bunny, it had G for Gourmande Girls. By the way, these palettes, all the three palettes that I showed, was in collaboration by Doodles by the Bunny, which is Angela on Instagram. If you've not seen her work, she does amazing palette like designing, which I love, absolutely love her work. And this is how the palette looks. Like, I know as soon as you see it, this reminds you of like the Nightshade palette and the Spooked palette, everything together. At the end of the video, I'm going to do a comparison with like each shade on the back of my hand so that you can see it in action. But this is how the palette swatches. I'll show you all the swatches on the screen for you guys. And you can see all the shifts in the dimension in the outside lighting in the sunlight. These have some beautiful shifty and dimensional shades, which I absolutely love. And I love this quarter of the palette. These mattes took my breath away. I love deep grungy mattes. So this I love. This is my favorite multi-chrome that they have ever created. I love this shade. It shifts to like a purple, to a blue, to a green, to a teal, to a pink. It's stunning, absolutely stunning. And this might not even look like anything in the palette, but this is such a beautiful purple, like a warm purple to a gold shifting shade. I love that. Okay, now without further ado, let's move on to the eye looks using this palette. Okay, let's begin with this beautiful palette and make some gorgeous looks. I'm gonna do two looks with this palette. So let's begin. I know for a fact I need to use this because this just jumps out to me as soon as I open the palette. Even this shade looks absolutely amazing. Yeah, let's do something, okay? I'm gonna start with this shade and then blend this shade too and see where we go. So let's start off with like a big blending brush with the shade Scared. And this is like a gray shade. So I'm gonna start off with the outer corners and then slowly blend it to the inner corners. It does have like a taupiness to it. When I'll show you the swatches, you'll exactly know, because that's how can I show you? That's how deep it can go, like that. But I want like a washed out effect on my eyes. So let's do that. So Scare all over my eyelid. And I'm well aware of Gourmande Girls formula. I really love the quality of the mattes and the shimmers that they put out. Like, their eyeshadows are absolutely stunning. So at this point, I would say whatever color story speaks out to you, just get that and you will be super happy. So you can see how smoky it got. And that was like with a light fluffy brush. Now we're gonna just deepen it out a tad bit with the shade Bewitched, that purple shade. Again, starting off there, yep. And then putting it across the crease. Just a little lower than that gray shade that we applied. Basically, I want that mixture of that gray and purple to come through for that beautiful multi-chrome in the palette. And we can definitely deepen it out with that black if we want to. Again, not worried about the blending at all, just because I know that's gonna get covered by the shimmer. Applying the same purple shade Bewitched on the lower lash line too. You know how much I love my purples, so I cannot even like deal with this. Okay, I'm gonna take a tad bit of that black, which is called Troubled. This one, I absolutely love their blacks that Gourmande Girls make, and Gourmande Girls makes puts black in majority of their palette, I would say, and I love their blacks because it's super buildable and super blendable. Like, I am not that confident with blacks, with all the blacks I would say, but I'm definitely comfortable with like Blend Bunny blacks and Gourmande Girls blacks, and even Ladybug Glow. They do blacks really, really well. See, I got that depth without any issue. Okay, now I'm gonna take the same blending brush, just buffing out everything, just like that. I'm gonna take my NYX Glitter Glue, because time for shimmers, and apply it all across my eyelid. And this can go so many places. Like, I don't even know. I know I need to apply that blue, purple, pink shimmer, but apart from that, I don't know. Now I'm gonna dip into that blue shade. Can you see? It's like blue, purple, green. Oh my god, it's stunning. Okay, I'm gonna take that. Oh wow. Wow. Okay, I want this on the majority of the eyelid. Wow. Oh my god, I am in love. Can you see that? That will be so stunning for a halo eye. Can you even imagine? Yeah, I'm going to office tomorrow with this shade as a halo eye look. I don't even care. I do not. It's so pretty. Okay, now for the inner corners, I'm gonna take this shade, which is Unearthly. This one. Yep. Oh my god, look at the glow. This can easily take over the look. Just sweeping it right there and mixing it with that blue shade. These are so sparkly. Oh my goodness, I love it. I love it. I don't even know. Okay, I'm gonna finish off this eye with some liner and mascara and I'll get right back. And that's my first eye look. I love how beautiful the shimmers are, and the mattes blended out really, really well. I went with like a huge blending brush, so that's why you see like a light wash of the shades, but I love it. I love it. Okay, now let's do something else here because you know it's so pretty. Now I'm gonna take this shade, which is So Haunted. This shade, the orangey yellow shade. I know the other yellow looks super similar, which I mean, it would be my complaint, to be very honest, that both of them would look, especially on like a mid-tone skin, it's gonna look very similar. Or you have to go with like a white base, and even the green, the muted greens are also look super similar in the pan. The amount of love that I have for Gourmande Girls, I just want as many shades as I can in a palette from them. Having like repetitive shades, I feel like, you know, it just seems so, it's different. It's definitely different, but I feel like it's similar enough not to be in the same palette, if that makes sense. This is definitely lighter than this one. This is definitely lighter than this one. But you know, I want more. I'm greedy. I'm a little greedy with Gourmande Girls. I really love their formula. And I wait for their Halloween launches because they just do Halloween grungy palettes so very nicely. Okay, now I'm gonna go with this shade, which is Horrify, this one, and I'm gonna start melting it with that yellow shade. This is a fluffy but tapered brush, if you can see, and I'm going with like a very light hand, just so that I don't like go out of place. Turning the brush, going over that yellow, the sunflower thing, and just melting both of those together. Going back into this shade, Cursed, blending the edges of the other green. Now this would help you to blend all the shades. So beginner friendly palette for sure, because you have variants to blend these things. I'm gonna go into this shade, which is Obsessed, and I'm gonna blend the sunflower yellow also, so that there's no harsh lines. I want to see how much deep that green can get, so I'm going to take that shade Horrify again, and I'm going to go over the outer corners with that green. Maybe because I applied a lot of mattes, it's not going as deep as I want, but if you want something more deeper than this, obviously you can take the other shades which are more deep, or apply the deepest matte first and then blend it out with like a lighter tone shades, just like that. Okay, now I'm gonna take this shade, which is Supernatural, this one, and I'm gonna take that on my lower lash line. See, that gives me a lot of depth. I'm gonna take that shade actually on my outer corners, just for the depth. I really need that depth. And mixing with that green shade. See, I have too many mattes there, that's why that's happening. But you saw how much deep this shade can go on my lower lash line. Okay, just to apply as many shades as I can, I'm gonna go with this green shade and then this shade. Actually, this shade. We did not apply that shade. We should have done that. That's more of like a satin shade. I don't think I can apply. We'll see. Okay, let's take this green shade, the glow stick green shade, and I'm gonna take that right there in the center of my eyelid. Look how much it pops. I'm just gonna tilt the brush, go into this shade, which is Ghostly. Loving that shade. It has like a lavender to a gold shift. I'm gonna take this shade, which is this one. What is this called? It's called Jinxed. And I'm gonna just melt it right in the center. Oh wow, that has a blue shift. It's like a pink with a blue shift. Okay. I'm gonna go back with the green because I don't want to miss that green. Mixing everything together. We have a lot of shades going on in this eye. I definitely need some depth there, so I feel like I'm gonna go over that black. Taking that black, which is Troubled, and I'm just gonna place that right there, just because there's a lot of shimmers. Definitely need depth. Probably would mix the black and the maroon, which is Supernatural, together. Yep, got it. Got what I was looking for. Also have a little bit of fallout there, which I'll clean it up in just a minute. Okay, now I'm gonna go over that shade called Spectral, which is the satin shade. Just because we did not use that, I want to just see how it performs. I'm gonna just place that in the inner corner. Yeah, that's a beautiful satin shade. It catches the light very well. Okay, let me finish off this eye with some liner and mascara and I'll get right back. And that's my second eye look. I love how this came out. I love the, you know, the mixture of the pink and the green together. I really, really love it. Everything was cohesive. Everything worked beautifully. Now let's move on to the final thoughts of this palette. Now, do you need this? If you do have the Nightshade palette and the Spooked palette, I leave it up to you. I'll hold it together. I also took a picture together. I'm going to compare it for you guys just to show like how similar they are or how different they are. Okay, so the top one is the Haunted palette. The second one is the Nightshade palette. And the third one is the Spooked palette. Now you can see, like, pause my video, see how many like shades are similar to each other, but I definitely feel like the Haunted is kind of like filling the family of Nightshade and Spooked together. Is there like similar shades? Absolutely, absolutely. When I first saw the Haunted palette, I definitely felt that this is similar to Nightshade more than the Spooked palette. But let's swatch this because I feel like everybody is for that, especially if you do have both the palettes. Otherwise you can see like the color story and decide for yourself whether you absolutely need this palette or not. First, let me show you the swatches by itself for the Haunted palette. So that's the Haunted palette swatched for you guys. And the shimmers are so stunning, so dimensional. It's really, really, really pretty. And I love those deeper tones of like mattes that were included in this. Really, really love it. Now in the pan, I know that this yellow and this yellow looks similar, but you can see the difference in the monitor. And this green and this green looks similar. But this is a little more deeper in tone than the other green, and this yellow is a little more lighter than this orangey yellow. So that's like similarity within the palette. Now let's talk about the pinks and the purples. This purple has a golden shift to it. This is like a satin purple shade, and this pink has a blue sparkling shift reflex to it. Okay, now let's do the comparison. Obviously my base palette would be the Haunted palette. To compare everything together, let's take the first shade, which is Ghostly, this one, and I'm gonna swatch it next to the shade Dream Shade, this one, from the Nightshade palette. So Ghostly and Dream Shade from the Nightshade palette. So you can see the difference. Dream Shade definitely has a lot more blue to it. I'm also going to swatch this shade, which is Jinxed from the Haunted palette, because that had a little bit of blue. So basically what I see is this one, the Nightshade shade, has purple with blue reflex, and this shade Jinxed has pink with blue reflex. I hope you can see that. So those are the similar shades in all of the palette together. I'm also going to swatch this shade from the Nightshade palette, Hypnotic, which also has like a pink, but this is more of like that cream satiny formula. There you go. Okay, so that looks a little bit more similar to this shade, the first shade that we swatched, which is Ghostly, at least in the viewfinder. Yeah, so the difference is the Ghostly shade has definitely, it's a similar tone, don't get me wrong, it's a very similar tone, but this Ghostly shade has a golden flip to it, which this shade doesn't have from Nightshade. But these two look similar and these two look similar. Was Ghostly matched up with Hypnotic from the Nightshade palette. So Ghostly and Hypnotic. This was Dream Shade from the Nightshade palette compared to Jinxed from the Haunted palette. Okay, let's move on to the next set of shades. Let's do the yellows all together. So I'm going to do Obsessed and So Haunted from the Haunted palette. So that's Obsessed and this is So Haunted. from the Haunted palette. Now let's compare that to the other yellows. So this is Bittersweet from the Nightshade palette. There you go. So that's Bittersweet compared to the Haunted yellows. Now let's move on to the shimmery yellows. So this is Unearthly from the Haunted palette. And I'm gonna compare that to Flowering from the Nightshade palette. So Unearthly and Flowering. There you go. The top one is Unearthly from the Haunted palette, and the second one is Flowering from the Nightshade palette. Now the Flowering shade clearly has a pink shift to it, as you can see. The next shade, the shimmery shade that I want to swatch is this shade, which is Eerie from the Haunted palette. And I'm going to swatch that against Apple Bob from the Spooked palette. Eerie and Apple Bob. There you go. Pretty similar, I would say. Especially on the eyes, I feel like it's gonna be similar, okay? Okay, now let's go with a bunch of mattes. Obsessed against this shade, which is Horrify from the Haunted palette. So Obsessed and Horrify. There you go. You can see the tone difference, right? And I'm gonna compare that to this shade, which is Scream from the Spooked palette. This one. There you go. So I would say the first one definitely is super similar to this one, which was Cursed from the Haunted palette to Scream from the Spooked palette. Okay, let's compare this shade, Bewitched, the purple. And I'm gonna compare it with Cauldron from the Spooked palette. Definitely a little different. I'm also gonna compare that to the Nightshade and Woody from the Nightshade palette. So Nightshade and Woody. Nightshade and Woody. Okay. It's similar to Nightshade. This shade is similar to Nightshade, but there's a tone difference. This is definitely a little more on the pink side, and this is more on the purple side. But I won't call it I won't call it dupes. I'm not going to compare the blacks because it's going to be similar in all the palettes. It's a matte black. So Spooked has one, Nightshade has one, and Haunted has one. And that's going to be dead similar. Now the last shade that I want to compare is this shade, which is Supernatural, this one. And I'm going to compare that to Fright from the Spooked palette. So Supernatural and Fright. There's a tone difference there. So those were the swatches that I wanted to compare with each other. I would say if there's any specific color story that calls out to you, go for that, because the quality is absolutely outstanding in Gourmande Girls palette. Again, this is Spooked that came out last year. I love this palette. Absolutely love this palette. And that gives the majority of variations in eye tones, I would say. And then this was the Nightshade palette that came out recently. I feel like July or August of this year. It's a purple, predominantly purple and a green palette. You know I love my purple, so this comes in very handy for me. I actually use this a lot, and I love those deeper grungy purples on the eye. And my favorite is this Woody shade. Oh my god, I love it. Okay, and obviously if these two had a baby, is what you get in the Haunted palette, with those orangey, yellow tones, green tones, the bluey. This is definitely a very unique shade, but with the purples, greens and yellows, then this is the palette for you. Again, this palette launches on September 15th. I have a code with Gourmande Girls, which is Smithy Sony, to save you 10% off. If you did like this video, if you did like the swatch comparisons to eye looks using this palette, then do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring that notification to get notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 9 AM Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.